Uh, Hello, everybody. It's State Representative Dave Rutigliano. We're joined today by an awesome person, Annie Puskar. Annie Puskar. For the people who don't know you, can you explain who you are and what you do?
Sure. I am an assistant professor at the Fordham University Graduate School of Education. I have my PhD from the University of Connecticut in special education, educational psychology with a specialization in special education. And specifically for the last 15 years, I've really focused my work on working with children and their families of kids who have autism and special needs and other developmental delays and disabilities, specific to early childhood, so birth to 3 population, early intervention, and preschool special education. And I train teachers to work with children with special education needs. And I am also a wife to my wonderful husband, John, and I have 2 young boys, Jack and Matthew.
So what we've been doing during the shutdown and the quarantine and with the kids and the family stuck in the house is we've been sort of recognizing the stress that it's been put on families and some of the mental health issues that people are going through, and then some of the stressors on our children. A lot of the students and young people are really having a difficult time, and we were trying to give parents tools and tricks so that they maybe could cope with the shutdown and with everybody being at home and sort of dealing with some of the stressors. One of the areas we haven't talked about is kids with special needs and how their needs and the family's needs may be different. So I thought it would be good for you and I to have a quick conversation to maybe at least recognize some of the problems or the stress the family may be having or the anxiety, and maybe some resources or a tip or two for them to deal with it. I know you are a mom to 2 young children, very young, right? How have you adjusted with COVID and life at home and dealing with the kids?
Having 2 working parents and 2 really young kids, we also have 2 dogs, so it's definitely been really fun and challenging, some hectic and stressful times. Our youngest is 7 weeks old, so amid the COVID crisis, we gave birth, which was, challenging and nerve-wracking to say the least. We've had a big transition having another baby and coming to a family of 4 amid this crisis. But I really just tried to do my best to maintain a schedule and kind of structure to our day. But at the same time, I've really tried not to stress too much about having a perfect schedule. If you ask me, the second week of March, when all of this started, I had a nice color-coded schedule and tried to do that. But here we are, day 70 something that we've been at home. So I really try to kind of keep some momentum, but not stress.
Did you really start with a color-coded schedule? Is that how you thought you would handle it?
I did. But I think, what I've really tried to focus on is, you mentioned mental health, and really try to focus on the social emotional support of our young kids, but also the mental health of each other. So I think with kids, really trying to maintain structure and schedule to what's most important in their day, and that is sleeping and eating and feeling loved. And I think it was Maya Angelou who said, I've learned that people will never forget what you said, but how you made them feel. And so really trying to make sure my kids feel loved and that we're here for them. And so, other things will kind of fall into place. They'll learn as they go, but really just trying to focus on that social emotional well-being that is so important for young kids and the mental health of kids and adults of all ages.
Are you still doing any training or interacting with any teachers during this time? And if so, what advice would you be giving a special education teacher on how to handle the distance learning with some of their students with special needs?
So I think the biggest thing, and it's similar to the advice I give parents, is that it's unfair to expect the same type of progress that you would if you were meeting with the kids face to face every day as a special education teacher. So it's really important to be working closely with the parents and teachers together as a team to keep momentum, but also give yourself a lot of grace and flexibility that, progress is going to look really different over the last couple months and over these next few months before really getting back into school. So the most important part, I think, is don't put too much pressure on yourself to make it look the same as it would if you were in school, because it's not going to be the same.
We had talked a lot with some of the other guests that we've had conversations with about scheduling, or the importance of scheduling. Some of the parents have sort of, now that everybody's home, have instituted these, really strict schedulings. And one of the doctors had said, and I thought it was enlightening, but I wanted to get your opinion on it. He goes, listen, if you had this really great structured house before COVID, then fine. But you really should probably, and if you didn't, it's not the time to start instituting all these things, because it's really unnatural for your family. I didn't know if you had an opinion on that one.
Yeah, I think so. I think that has a really valid point. There's so much transition going on and so much uncertainty from everybody that I think providing some type of structure or semblance of a schedule to the day is going to be helpful for everybody. And that's just to set expectations. And, I've talked to parents who have multiple kids in school. I know a high school teacher who has 3 school-age kids. So having to have them rotate through being on a laptop or a tablet for him teaching and the kids doing school, I think having some type of structure is going to be helpful even if you didn't have that before. But don't try to do a complete 180 in something that's really unnatural for what works best for your family. So there's kind of a happy medium in there that provides some structure and schedule so that everybody can kind of know what to expect each day, and you're not waking up every morning kind of not knowing what you're going to need to be doing. But don't do a complete 180 if that's not what's naturally to be best for what works for you guys.
Very good. So we did solicit some questions, and we told everybody that we were going to have a conversation. So we have a couple, and I was going to sort of ask you that and see what the answers are.
All right.
You work a lot with special needs children. It must be especially difficult for them during this time. Can you talk about some ways you have to successfully transition them to what we're calling the new normal?
Yeah, so I think going back to schedule and structure in the day, and I think also going back to what we talked about earlier is really the social emotional well-being of kids and families should really be front and center. So starting with schedule and structure just to meet those basic needs. So, and this goes for everybody, not just kids with special needs, but especially for kids with developmental delays or special needs, really need structure around, play and learning, but also the physical health, sleep schedules, meals, and keeping those social emotional needs a priority. And I think parents of children who receive special education services in schools should be really in close contact with those service providers. So if your child receives support from a speech language pathologist or an occupational therapist or physical therapist, be in contact with them to implement some strategies so that you can be working on their goals with them at home. I know a first grade teacher who also is in pretty close contact with her special education teachers, so to create accommodations and modifications to assignments before them happening, so trying not too much to play catch up. But also there are students that are in programming that is really difficult to transfer into being more virtualized. So students with some more severe challenges or severe needs that might be really difficult. So continuing that momentum by working closely with service providers for ideas and strategies to implement at home is going to be really important. And I think also it's important for parents to again, give themselves grace that their role is a parent and it's not to provide services for their child. So they can implement strategies that are natural to them and natural to their routines and natural to their environment and natural to their family. But trying to implement, lessons that don't naturally fit in is going to be really stressful and really challenging. So there's some great resources online, such as, just autismspeaks.org is a great resource for some ideas. Local school districts should be also providing some support with resources. I know the State Department of Education and the Special Education Department within the State Department of Education is also providing resources online and continually updating those lists when they are receiving resources. So I think those are good places for parents to go, but again, not to put too much pressure on themselves to make the same amount of progress that they would if they were in school right now.
Do you think there's value in if say a child goes to school and has a paraprofessional or some help within the class, do you believe that there's value in that paraprofessional contacting that student during this time, or either by Zoom, if that's permissible, or by phone, or just sort of checking in with them? I don't know if you see any value in that and what your opinion on that would be.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think because of this uncertain time, as much consistency as we can provide as possible is going to be really valuable. So I know there are some districts that might not allow a paraprofessional to do a Zoom call with the child on camera, but the paraprofessional might be able to be on camera or send a video message. My sister-in-law is actually a teacher, and she's done video messages for her students just to send them to say that she's thinking of them, and again, really focusing on that social emotional support. She teaches math, so the math kind of comes secondary right now to her being able to know that her students are okay. So there's definitely value in that. So working around the rules that are in place for the protection and privacy of students
right.
is important. But being able to send videos or have a phone call or do some type of Zoom call to be live just to check in, I think would be really valuable, and again create that consistency for the students who are having a difficult time with so much uncertainty and so much change to their days.
It's good to know, because I know Trumbull, I think now is sort of activating the paraprofessionals to check in with the students. I'm not sure what method they're using. I just know that they're working on a strategy. So one of the other questions
would be really important because that also alleviates some pressure off the teachers too. So they should be really working together. So I think that's going to be really valuable for the students and the families.
Good. One of the other questions was, many things such as libraries, camps, and pools are closed or will be different this summer. What are some activities or strategies to do with the kids over the summers? I guess it's to sort of enhance the learning or to keep them engaged. What sort of things do you think the families can do over the summer if some of these typical activities are closed or limited?
So I think one, do what your family normally does in the summer as best as possible. Remember, this is also a summer break for students. So as much as we want to continue enhancing learning opportunities and have students make learning progress, also know that they also kind of need a break from whatever this distance learning has looked like for them. So allow them that opportunity for a break. I think too, the Connecticut state parks are going to have restrictions, but also be available. So I know you can find more park specific information at ct.gov. One thing that we've done is toy exchanges or puzzle exchanges or game exchanges with friends. You can do that in a socially distant way. So kind of to provide some novelty in the activities that you're doing at home. So obviously disinfect toys and before you exchange them with other families, but to bring novelty to some activities could be helpful. And then Zoom calls. I know it's weird, but it was kind of adorable. We watched our two-year-old have a Zoom call with one of his little friends from daycare. So they didn't talk quite as much as the mom and I did, but it was really, he wanted to see his friend and his friend wanted to see him. So also utilizing that technology to have children and kids, engage with their friends as much as they possibly can. So I know there are also websites out there now that are doing virtual game nights. So you can do trivia nights with other families.
Yeah, I've heard of those. Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and even trying to kind of build novelty to what you would normally do. So if your family normally does, a Saturday movie night, maybe if there's a way you could set it up so you could do movie night outside that week if it's a nice week or something. So kind of building in those special things that you guys can do as a family, I think will help and just create some type of normalcy for these kids.
So I'll ask you this question. We've sort of asked everybody and sort of get the answer from everybody's perspective. Is one of the main stressors or concerns that parents have is the amount of screen time or game time that their kids are having. Many kids sit there and say it's the only social interaction they have is with their friends on, say, Xbox or the PlayStation or something like that. I mean, I didn't know if you had an opinion on what's too much or strategies for tamping it down or.
I don't know if I would say there's, a precise number of minutes or something is too much. I think parents need to evaluate what they're using that technology and screen time for. I mean, full disclosure, yesterday, my 2-year-old probably spent a little too much time on the iPad watching YouTube videos. But one of the things I did is I turned on the subtitles. So I felt a little better that, he was getting stories read to him or, watching videos with the words on it so he could see that. But I think just evaluating why you're using the screen time or social media or games or something like that, and what's really the purpose behind it is, and families will know, and parents will kind of be able to know what is too much for them. So, if the reason is to make sure that kids are staying safe while mom and dad get some work done, or engaging them with their friends online, or engaging them in educational activities, there's some real value in technology. So I think really parents asking themselves what is really the purpose of why they're using that game or why they're using that technology or screen time, and they'll be able to tell if too much is too much.
So one of the other major questions that sort of everybody has, regardless of their child's learning level, is the anxiety about going back to school. Maybe if schools do open in the fall, I mean, some of these kids have been in school for, almost 6 months. And how do we handle that? What do we do? I mean, how do we sort of integrate our kids back into the school system, especially with kids with special needs or learning disabilities? I mean, what are the challenges that poses?
Yeah, I think that is definitely where a lot of people's minds are kind of now shifting. Is we've gone through this big transition that happened pretty quickly and abruptly for a lot of families. And a lot of families and even teachers went into it thinking they'd be out for a couple weeks. So it was a big change, and now really thinking we have a lot more time to think about, oh gosh, what is this going to look like when we get back to school? So I think for children with special needs, it's really going to be really important for parents to be in contact with the service providers in the school that are on the child's individualized education plan or 504 plan to start planning. But I think also having some flexibility as decisions are being made. So hopefully kids are going back to school in the fall, but I think we can all agree that that's not going to be necessarily a guarantee as much as we would like for it to be. So being really patient and flexible as these decisions are being made is going to be really important, and staying in communication with those service providers to help support that transition plan. And I would start talking about that with them now, and really kind of devise a plan with what works best for each learner. So some students really might learn better visually. So if teachers are in schools before kids are, so being able to send pictures of classrooms to help kids picture what that's
So
going
you're
to look
saying
like.
before the school year starts, they could sort of email pictures of
Sure.
the classroom. That would be a trick or a strategy to sort of.
Yeah.
And when you say transition back to school, I mean, what would that look like? Like, would it be like maybe they only do a couple days a week to start, or ease them back into it? I like that idea about the pictures. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, so I think pictures of classrooms and also pictures of people can be really helpful. So if you're going to have a new teacher or a different teacher that the student hasn't had before, so being able to do that, I think we've kind of embarked on being able to use technology. So you could do virtual classroom tours for your class. Depending on rules for privacy, you could also have opportunities for kids to meet online before they come into the school year. And I think yeah, just being able to think a little bit more creatively outside the box to help prepare students for what they're going to walk into and what that's going to look like. And so if that means that parents need to start talking to their kids about different rules that might be in place because of social distancing or capacities of classrooms or lunchrooms, or what that's going to look like in the fall. So the more that the teachers and administrators can kind of set those in place ahead of time, so they can communicate that with parents, so parents can really start talking to their kids about what that's going to look like, because it's going to look really different. School being open is not going to be school back to normal as what they knew before. So the more that we can prepare students ahead of time and really set them up for success, the smoother a transition is going to be.
I think that's some really good advice. Now, I promised I wouldn't keep you forever. There's probably a million questions, but more than likely there's going to be questions generated just from our conversation, and I hope that you could come back or
Sure.
email or on video and answer some of those questions. But if you could take your doctor hat off for a second,
Okay.
put your mom hat on. What, as a mom, especially with two very young children, what has been your biggest surprise through all this?
I think overall the resilience of so many different people. I think the resilience of kids, and I was really worried at first about our 2-year-old, because he really enjoyed being at daycare. We call it school for him, but he's loving having all of us at home. But I think just the resilience of how people have connected through FaceTime or Zoom calls. And I actually hope that part really sticks after this whole experience, is kind of keeping people connected.
So it's good that you say that, because we had a conversation with Dr. Pettit about mental health. And he had said the Zoom call, this video, this interaction that even that you and I are doing now is such an important part of people's mental health, just that human connection, even though it's altered, with grandparents or parents and children. So it's amazing that you've said it a few times, that this Zoom call was a good thing for your kids, especially with their school friends, and it could potentially be a useful tool to teachers as kids transition back to school. So I think that was very insightful, and probably some pretty good advice.
Thanks. Yeah, I think too, my parents live in Maryland, so they actually haven't been able to meet our newborn yet, and 7 weeks old. So we FaceTime them quite a bit. It's difficult. I'm sure some of your constituents are grandparents, so I'm sure they can appreciate that it's really difficult to not be able to meet your grandchildren right away. So we've really tried to utilize that technology as much as we possibly can to stay connected with our family and friends who live close but also far away. So yeah, and I think I'm surprised by the creativity that I've seen from other moms, and sharing those ideas. I think, we've created games out of nothing. So I had to vacuum today, and we had toys all over the place. So I had my 2-year-old run and pick up the toys so the vacuum monster wouldn't be able to get them. And, he thought it was great, and I thought it was great, because we could pick up toys and vacuum and have fun while doing it. So I think just being able to connect with other people in a way that this has forced us to has been really, really valuable, and I hope some of that really sticks after we're past everything with COVID.
Well, I really appreciate your time. I won't take up any more of it. I didn't get to all the questions, but I feel we've had enough for today, or you've had enough for today, and I want you to be able to wind down and enjoy the rest of your night. And I really appreciate you coming on, and I really appreciate you sharing some of your expertise. And I know you're an awesome mom and a great doctor and a teacher. So you have lots of hats over there. So I appreciate your time.
Oh, anytime. I'm glad to do it. And if more questions come up, I'm happy to meet again.
I appreciate that. And they will come up. Believe me, they'll come up. So
all right.
thank you very much.
All right. Have a great night.
You too.